the group of panelists we have here today are representing the API world of CPHI. So we're going to have a very good perspective of different stages of the CDMO world from discovery through to the final drug product in terms of why we are rethinking the relationship with our sponsors, but also the relationship within each other between different CDMOs, because oftentimes we have to rely on other CDMOs to work to get our partners' program forward. So we will have Alicia, Anuji, Daniel, and Jeffrey, who are going to be giving themselves a brief introduction, and then we'll start talking about rethinking relationships. Alicia?
Great. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alicia Zacca I'm working with Procos SPA. It's an Italian manufacturer focused in drug substance, and we were doing analytical process development as well as scaling of processes and full GMP manufacturing from clinical phase 1 through commercialization.
Anuji Abraham. I'm a senior director heading the pharmaceutical and analytical development at CDMO, Altasciences. Altasciences is more than CDMO. So we have R&D, product development to taking it to preclinical stages to clinical phase 1, 2, and commercialization. But we also have preclinical sites and clinical sites, regulatory support, bioanalytical. So pretty much it's a North American company, 9 sites across US and Canada. So we have the integrated model of working.
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Kirshner. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of our Cambrix Durham facility. So Cambrix is a global CDMO based in US and Europe, focused in drug substance manufacturing. My angle here today is that I come from an analytical background, and so I run our Center of Excellence in Analytical Chemistry and can provide some perspectives on that.
Good afternoon, my name is Jeff Spiker. I'm the Commercial General Manager of a division of PL Developments called PLD Pharma Services. We are a contract manufacturer in a diverse delivery systems from solid dose liquids and semi-solids, chewy gummies and soft chews. And I've been with the PLD now 10 years.
Great, thank you. So we had a meeting before this session, and one of the things that really struck me was the fact that you come also from the sponsor background. In other words, before you started working for the service provider, you were a client to service providers. And what I'd like to really understand is how do you see that relationship? Because obviously when we think about relationship, we have to think about that relationship between the sponsor and the service provider both ways, right? Because the relationship works between the service provider and the sponsor. So I'd like to maybe give us some idea of how that's evolving.
Yeah, I can chime in.
Yeah.
So I worked for Bristol Myers for the past 14 years before joining Altasciences last year. So I see the clients as 3 different kind of clients, right? A client like Bristol Myers knows everything, right? So you come to a CDMO pretty much knowing everything, and you just have to execute for them. But there are mid-sized clients or startups where we closely work with. That's where the collaborative work comes, right? So understanding the client and providing the need for them, sometimes it's like walking with them, right? Making them understand the nuances of product development, getting to preclinic, how do you bridge to clinic, right? All of those aspects has to be walked for certain type of clients, but bigger clients, you execute for them. So that, understanding the client and collaborating with them is the key aspect, I feel, right?
Yeah, maybe I'd add to, I agree with all of those comments. I think that what we've seen is coming from the pharma space, you're going to be focused on the regulatory side of driving those filings. You're going to be focused a lot of, obviously, on the CMC. And when you go from one side to the other and you start working in the CDMO space, what you really realized, or what I realized, is that a lot of CDMOs at the time that I joined, which was over a decade ago, didn't really focus heavily on the regulatory side. And so, just as an example of how that is different now than it was, is like when we look at, I saw a client yesterday, and we were talking about a regulatory filing while we were, came here to Philadelphia, and we're walking through and navigating with them what that is. And I think that probably over time we've seen a lot of people move from the pharma space into the CDMO space and help propagate kind of the knowledge sharing and driving more regulatory based decisions with our clients.
I think these are a good point that people have transitioned in the way they manage their clients. In the companies that I'm with, it's unique in that we have a private label part of our business. And when I first came to this company 10 years ago, I said, that's not going to work. The private label is the arch rival of the branded companies. It's quite frankly turned different, where we're finding that most of the national brands that we work with right now have come to us because they're looking for somebody that may have a product X, but with a different flavor, or with a different color. So that helps move it along completely. But what is really important is that it used to be the big branded companies would basically heavy-handed say, this is the way we're going to do it. You're just going to take the product on board and you'll run the product, a CMO. The CDMO has become evolving in that we have to offer all aspects of that. We have to offer the tech transfer, the method development. And sometimes we can't do those methods ourselves. We go to outside labs and we have partnerships with those labs. But at the end of the day is the customer doesn't really want to manage that. They want to be managed in one house. If you use a third-party lab, that's great, but they want to be able to come to you and say, I want the product delivered to market and you do all the work for us. And that's been a big change, because in the past, the CMO world was basically, I come to you with a product, we'll do all the work, you just run the product for us. So it's evolved a lot. In the last 10 years, I've seen dramatically, where the big companies, the big branded companies are coming to us and saying, you do the work for us. We still rely on the big branded companies to have the think tank there, the regulatory backup that can help us. But again, we do use outside labs frequently to help support what we do if we don't have the capabilities ourselves.
Right. When we talk about strategic relationships, also the other thing I was thinking is, we are a global industry, so inevitably cultural fit comes into play, and how you manage those relationships. And I wanted to ask Alicia specifically, because the company she represents is based in Italy, and therefore you automatically have to deal with transatlantic relationships, not only in terms of language, but culture, but then time zone, etc. How do you manage that?
Procos is an Italian company. It's also owned by a Japanese company. So I think the entire culture of our company is stemming from two major cultures, Japanese and Italian, which right now it's in its 20th year of having that relationship since the company was acquired 20 years ago. So we work across developments not only for US, but also for Japan and Europe. And I think it's a really it's a big effort, I think, from a cultural position, a language position, but set across our site and then different areas that we work in, we have people of different cultures working across and like here in America, I'm representing the company for the American-based customers, and there's a different perspective that I have to advocate for the clients to have our team members understand what the needs are versus how they want to manage it. And so there's a constant collaboration and communication between the sponsor, the site, and working together to develop the relationship, which is critical for all of the teams to collaborate and work together, from R&D and quality control and manufacturing, to make sure that we're delivering what the client is expecting.
Okay. Anybody? I know with Cambrix you have almost the same challenge, right? Because you have sites spread throughout the globe.
Yeah, so we have sites in the U.S. and Europe. and do manufacturing in both. And so we often have programs that can spill between one or the other, and sometimes can't, the company will work on a program where certain steps of a process are done at one facility and other steps are done at another. Just depends on the synergy that we're trying to drive for the client and the timeline. And so, yeah, there's, you definitely have a lot more internal meetings, make sure you can align across the team. And I think a lot of what we've seen is kind of really trying to drive towards just really close internal partnerships within our network, and I think that really helps drive that kind of external communication to our clients.
Another thing that also, I'm a big advocate for the small biotech, right? Some of you have come from the big biotechs, and everybody always wants to work with the big biotech, and admit it or not, some don't really like to work with the small biotech. How do you integrate a small biotech in your long-term strategy for growth as a company service provider, but then at the same time also as a conduit for that small biotech to grow? Mm-hmm. And Anushi and Jeff, I'd like to have your perspective on that because...
Yeah, it's challenged typically sorting through the different clients that come in at a show like this as well. What's the best fit? You're right. I mean, big pharma and big branded companies like the P&Gs, the Bayers of the world, they're always seen to be attractive, at least from the outside. But I do like the small venture companies that come along, the virtual companies, and there's many of them out there. It's become more of them become predominant out, the virtual companies that have nothing more than a purchasing person, an outsourcing person. And one of the things that we have learned to do is to build an infrastructure internally to support both. And the smaller companies, you constantly have to basically control the fact that their expectations have to be managed. What do they expect the timeline to be? And that's the biggest thing, is managing the time. The big pharma tend to be used to that. The little guys are not, and they don't have the resources for it. But we have actually set up separate support systems internally to support both types of companies. And they're both a challenge. The big branded companies are challenges, but one of the things that we've learned to live with is the fact that the big companies, the big branded companies can actually help us a lot with a lot of the resources that we need to move along. The little guy may not, and we have to be able to support them.
Yeah, but the big companies are coming to you for something that they need.
Right.
So you can stand with confidence knowing that whatever service you're providing them, because if, I would say Pfizer, bigger companies, they have internal resources across the board. So if they're coming to you, it's something that you're giving them that they don't have, right?
And that's a good point. I'm trying to be delicate about it. The smaller companies sometimes really don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this earlier, transitioning an ANDA that they've acquired. If they've never been through the process before, is it a delayed release? Is it a time release? Is it a suspension? There may be different paths for each one of those to bring those to regulatory approval. And if they're a small company, they've never experienced that before. You're right, big pharma knows that, and so I don't have to deal with that. Yeah. But if we're prepared for that kind of challenge and to give them the support they need, the one thing I find is that small companies, if they're well-founded, well-grounded, can grow to become long-term clients. Yeah. And you want to treat them equally, but you got to make sure you're matching your capabilities with their abilities. Yeah. And that's what's a challenge.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things you were telling. I was going to say that, but just to emphasize, here comes the two different sets of clients, right? The bigger ones, they know everything, right? And they come for something unique for that company where you can deliver and you just need to execute it, right? They have figured out everything. But for smaller companies or mid-sized companies, it all starts with a molecule for me, right? Understanding that molecule, right? What route should I take? What is the QTPP, right? Quality Target Product Profile. So you're walking with them. So if you are somebody who is willing to collaborate and walking with them, there is success, and that builds along the long-term strategy, right? So you're building success to the molecule, meaning that there will be more molecules coming in, and you're taking through clinical success is commercialization, right? So it's different strategy, but you need to invest in both, right? Yeah, you need to have the mindset to work with both sets of people and understanding they are different.
Yeah, I just want to add in, just some perspective. So the small biotechs, they can be some of the most fun clients to work with, this is a fun job in working in the CDMO space, but working with small biotechs, it's enriching. You get to help clients walk through regulatory strategies, help drive decisions with them. There's always going to be challenges with programs, and sometimes there can be expectations that are way outside of what they've seen, but we've seen that with Big Pharma as well, or really aggressively pushing timelines. But I think that what we've found is working with the small biotechs is you can create a customer for life pretty quickly and really differentiate for them, and that's something that's really just been really, I think, enriching for the team, is to be able to work with them, walk them through the process, even help, draft certain elements of the regulatory filings and support them through that. And those clients, they may go off and, sell that asset or move on, but that relationship will always be there. So it's been really, really great to work with small biotechs.
Yeah, another point to that is when those assets get sold, right? So you never know which kind of program you're attaching yourself to, because some can be very successful and others will stop, but you build that relationship and develop more projects with companies. But when it comes to an asset that gets then sold, for some smaller CDMOs, that's their ticket into big pharma and being involved with larger pharmaceutical companies. So, I think the idea is, as a CDMO, you're a service provider. It doesn't matter who the customer is. You can't determine the fate of those programs, but your job is to deliver and execute, right? And you develop great relationships with people. You get your company can be introduced to different opportunities for increasing your technology capabilities, because your client and your relationship will bring, I want to work with Procos, I want to work with Cambridge because we have a great relationship. Can you guys do this? Mm-hmm. Sure, why not? Let's try it. Let's work together. And those kinds of technology advancements can develop when you have a great relationship with a partner.
Maybe just one comment on that too, because I think it just goes to the point that, a lot of the innovations that we've seen in CDMO space over the last decade, a lot of that was reliant on what we've seen from, these small virtual companies coming up with novel new medicines and new treatments, needing new technologies to be able to either run it through the plant or to be able to test it on the back end. And so, we've seen areas where, we start working with a small biotech with a unique technology, and then we start adding more of that technology, selling it to other clients. So it's been really mutually beneficial, but I think at least from where I came from, a lot of the innovations that we've been able to build have really, really come from a lot of the small biotechs bringing some really unique challenges.
If I may chime into that, it's going to happen more and more, right? Because with AI, there's the single person companies coming, right? You just have everything figured out through agents and AIs, and you just need service providers. Along comes the innovation you are talking about, right? So every sector, you have this virtual company. There's only one person handling it, let's say, and you're coming to manufacturing and there is innovation there. You need to find that route to manufacture. Then comes the CDMO, right? What's the path? What is the best way to get it to a product in clinic or preclinic? Innovation comes there. So that makes CDMOs, as much as big pharma and biotechs are exciting, there is an excitement for CDMO from that perspective, right? The innovation aspect, how we can go along with that, yeah.
Then one of the things that I'm thinking also is, Daniel, you just touched on it where you said, well, you have a relationship with another service provider where you work together to help this one client move the program forward. When you look at the other side of that, we hear a lot of vertical integration within companies, right? And sometimes it seems that the concept of vertical integration is to eliminate these strategic relationships with other service providers. And my question would then be, from each one, how do you see that vertical integration helping you as a company, helping the client move the program forward? but then at the same time establish that important relationship that you have to have, because Anuja, you just mentioned something very important. When you look at AI, it used to be that it took us 2 weeks to figure things out. Now we figure things out in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And it's all aided by AI, and all of a sudden you got to go back and say, well, ChatGPT told me that you can do this, but you don't realize that it takes sometimes months, if not years, to integrate what you can do in 5 minutes into the actual operations of the company. So I'm just very interested to hear your thoughts on that. Anybody?
I can start. So I would say that speed is one of the aspects, right? Everybody needs everything fast, right? Like AI, you just said everything is spitting out in 5 minutes or seconds. So that 5 minutes cannot be translated to real world where we are making things. But at the same time, speed is a factor, right? So the vertical integration, what you meant, a company like Altasciences, not advertising, but just giving as an example, is that we have all the services, right? Starting from preclinical R&D all the way to commercialization can be within, right? So it can be run, you can call it as a contract drug development organization, right? So whatever a big pharma was doing, you can do everything, but through one PM, right? So going to different service providers, there is a time lag in, even if it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, each time that 3 weeks, 2 weeks is adding to overall months of delay, right? In terms of getting to your clinic. So if everything could be in one place, that will save those months to get it faster to preclinic and then clinic. So that is one of the advantages of sticking with one place. But you need to understand what, when you say that you can deliver that, you have to make them understand what comes with it, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, from a drug substance point of view, providing R&D, analytical development, process development, and scaling a process, I could say, having it in one place, having all the analytical capabilities, being able to test, release, those are critical factors. I know that there's a lot of analytical companies that are just offering an analytical service, or a company that's offering, some other option for the client. But we're not a vertically integrated company from drug substance to drug product, strictly in drug substance, but we find that people will come because they have a special need, right? And so there's a service that you're offering. You can't always get it all in a one-stop shop. And of course, those timings can be critical for movement of product from our site to a CMO site for the next step. But I think sometimes what we do is we collaborate with our sponsors, partners, to ensure, like we know, for example, like we could be shipping a lot of product to Catalent or some other facility, right? And we get to know the people at that CMO. And so we can facilitate for our client how to manage movement of product, saving some time, like little nuances here and there that can help. But if you're offering full of services, that's great, but projects these days are also very complex, and so I feel like people have no choice. They have to move from one CDMO to another in order to fulfill the needs of their program. If they get lucky, they can work in one spot. Yeah.
It depends on the case, right? There could be a case where everything could be at one place, or there's advantage to that, and there is advantage to having some uniqueness as well, right?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're seeing on our end is the clients that we're working with, even though they're very capable of doing it themselves and building the product themselves from start to finish, they're really not wanting to do that. They want to come to us because you can offer everything from the beginning to the end. That's the model we've built. And part of that came from our history as a company. We started out re-engineering, reverse engineering other people's products to make private label products that you and I buy in the store all the time. And so with that capabilities, we've built the ability to be able to take a product from basic concept all the way to commercialization. People appreciate that, the fact that you can do it all in-house, because in the past there always was that synapse between a development house and manufacturing. Even today I've had a couple of companies come by that they have the product developed and they're ready to transfer it to a CMO. To me, that scares me a little bit, because do they have the same mixing equipment? Did they have the same lab equipment? Is it going to, and they believe that because it's already ready to go to market, it should be an easy transition. Where if I can do it as much as possible in-house or with a partner lab or a partner analytical group that we've worked with before, it ensures the end-use customer, whether it's a Procter & Gamble or a Bayer or whoever it is, that they're going to get the finished product coming out the door because they trust us, and that's part of it. Trust in the fact that you're going to deliver the product, whether you're going to do all the work yourself or have someone else do it for you, you're going to be able to manage it all the way from beginning to end. We do use occasionally contract packagers, even though we have our own packaging capabilities. And why do we do that? Because sometimes we don't have that packaging capability. But the end-use customer, wherever they may be, trust that we're going to be able to pick the right vendor. And so that's part of it, building trust with your customers, building that strategic relationship, which is what this presentation is about, taking it from just being a service provider to being a strategic relationship, as if you're part of their company. And the longer you're with them, whether it's a small company or a big company, you hope you build that trust, and it continues to build, that you can deliver a product, and they know the finished product is going to come to market on time and within budget. And that's what we're trying to do.
Fully agree.
Daniel, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I mean, I was thinking about it, with my bend towards the analytical side, and what I've seen in our space is we have programs where we may start a manufacturing at our facility and then take that up to a certain stage, tech transfer it to one of our sister sites that has a larger scale, keep all the analytics at one site so they all stay here right at our main site, and then we can minimize any tech transfer gaps, keep all of that knowledge in one space, move it all the way to commercial, and still maintain that data, all that analytical testing at one side. So I think that there's, we've definitely worked towards vertical integration where it works, and I agree with all the comments that everybody else said. So.
I'd like to ask the audience if you have perhaps any questions for our panelists. Don't be afraid, raise your hand, just like that, and then we'll bring up. No questions? Yeah, yes, I'll come over.
Thank you. When you talk about going from, building this trust and having a strategic relationship, I wonder, what are some examples that you guys have seen with your own businesses of partners that have taken it from transactional to strategic? What were the specific things that were done from a partnership level to move them from that transactional to strategic category as a partnership?
We just last year launched, it's funny, we bought an ANDA package from Teva, and in that package was a diamond in the rough, omeprazole. They had gotten FDA approval, but they had never taken it to commercial launch. And we actually partnered with a major branded company to be able to bring that product to market. And it took us 4 years to bring that product to market. But the strategy was basically sharing and collaborating within their regulatory team and our regulatory team. So part of that, what you're asking about, is taking it past where we have this invisible wall where we don't ask you, you don't ask us, you do the job. It's taking it more towards an ongoing moving relationship where we share information, we freely share challenges, failures we're having. We get frustrated that the BE study didn't go the way we wanted. So we all sit down, they bring people in to discuss how do we better structure that clinical trial next time that it's successful. So I think part of what I think it becomes part of is that we get past this RFQ where you send out a quote and you did the quote and you just get the business, you're going to run it. It becomes collaborative. You start to share with each other. I think, as I was saying earlier, you build this trust where you drop the barriers and you start working together as a team to make things work. And some of our biggest client growth over the years has been with relationships like that. And I think I've found that a lot of companies, and probably have seen this, they send these computer-generated RFQs out, and they have checked the boxes, and then you win the bid or not win the bid. Those aren't some of our best relationships. The relationships are ones we come across people here at trade shows or whatever that have a problem, and we work collaboratively to solve it over time. And we drop the barriers. We stop making this facade and trying to be arrogant that we know more than you do. We just share as honestly as possible. And sometimes it's scary because we don't want people to think that, hey, we don't know the answer. Sometimes we don't know the answer. And I think it's nice when you get to that level of trust and relationship that you can work with people like that.
I can chime into that saying, totally agree again with you, Jeff. It's all about relationship building, right? You have to see it's not operational, right? We are, executing, but we don't do in an operational mindset. We do with a collaborative mindset. We want the product to be successful, not like, you want the batch to be manufactured. That's not, it is one of the part of the success, but it's the product success, right? So you're thinking from every angle in terms of making that successful. That brings a relationship, right? That could be leading to a strategic relationship. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we've implemented, I started this, and I've been doing this for too many years, but is when we propose a proposal to a Procter & Gamble, for example, I totally break out all of our costs. And our team was not used to doing that. They said, wow, why are you doing that? Well, at the end of the day, they probably know what a bottle's going to cost. They probably know what the API is going to cost. And at the end of the day, we give an upfront, honest relationship as what our conversion is going to be. It starts at that point where they start to see that this is really a collaborative, because what you're really saying is that they could buy these products just as well themselves. They can buy these components. So what does it matter what the cost of the bottle is? And what ends up happening sometimes, they're saying, wow, you're paying way too much for caps. You're paying way too much for bottles. We can buy better. It's that starting stage where you start to collaboratively work together to get it finished. Because at the end of the day, I want the product up on our plants running, making money commercially. That's where we make money.
I would say, at least from my experience, and about 6-7 years ago, we developed an ADC drug linker that was eventually commercialized in an ADC program, and we had developed a really nice relationship with the pharma company, and that particular program, it has such a long manufacturing cycle that we invested on our own, but with their, let's say, agreement and further development of other potential programs, but we invested 2 dedicated isolation suites for that program, so that as it commercialized and that volume grew, and their business and collaborations grew from a global level, that they would have secure supply. And so this is more long-term development of a relationship, but really for commercial planning for a very specific molecule that has a very specific, let's say, life cycle expectation. So, our interest in working with our partners is also to extend from an investment point of view. We can continue to build up manufacturing suites dedicated to their programs, and I think that's, one area that Procos has been successful in being able to create that bond with the client. It's our own investment still, but the point is, we gave up that space for something that meant a lot to that market, that program, and its expansion. So just an example.
Yeah, I'll just maybe wrap that up and just say that sometimes when I'm looking around at the teams and the projects that are going through our facilities, you can really tell the ones that are transactional versus strategic. And on the strategic ones, you've got clients on site and they're coming over to see the facility. You're doing technical calls with the client on site. Maybe they come and visit. And so we see that all the time. And it's, I used to tell the team, you can measure your success by the number of chocolate baskets a client gives you. And it sounds really a silly thing, but back in 5-6 years ago, there was just really that ability to really differentiate and work and partner right alongside that client. And that goes to what I said. It's a lot of fun. You get to work with that, and you really see it a lot in some of the programs that have accelerated approval timelines, where look, everybody's going to make sacrifices to make this work. The CDMO is going to have to find a way to hit these aggressive timelines. The client's dependent on us being able to do that, and so those are the ones you're going to see a ton of strategy relationships built.
Thanks. Any other question? No. So all that sounds great, right? But what is the biggest hurdle, in your view, to getting something like that, something like this strategic relationship established in a way that is as transparent as you say? And I mention this because some years back, I was part of a what they used to call a global key account management setup, and one of our clients was BMS, right? And we would meet quarterly with BMS, and they'd give us a list of all the projects that they're working on, and they'll tell us, and we'll tell them we can do this, and that. And of the 10 projects that we listed as being able to do, maybe we only got 2 of them, right? So it all sounds really good, but what is the reality, and what is the biggest hurdle in getting that relationship established so that when you look at 10 projects, you can actually get the 10 projects that you've looked at?
My perspective is that listening to them, right? I mean, I cannot be inside your shoes and say that, but some of the clients we have had, building that trust is through listening to them, listening to that feedback, not like I am right or you are right? One execution of one successful product and investing in that, right? As you invest, for me, fundamentally, if I work for somebody, I'm developing this R&D drug, designing the product, right? My thing is, I need the success of this product, right? I am working with it. It's like it's my product, right? So if you show that level of vesting or investment in it, there is care, right? It's not, again, back to the point, it's not transactional. You are not coming, oh, I need this product, I just make it, that's it. No, we listen, we take the feedback, we collaborate, we talk. You pointed out that, there is no wrong and right? We learn from each other, and that's where that relationship building comes, right? I think that's very, very fundamental in my opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think we're not going to sell every customer. You talk about Bristol Myers Squibb. You want to be in the door. You want to get that opportunity. If you work a relationship and you find one person that gets it, that there's value in being honest, there's value in having a CMO or a CDMO share with you the details, then you grow that relationship organically within that client. That's what's going to happen. And you hope that you eventually find somebody within a Bristol Myers that sees value in that honesty, sees value in that collaboration. You're not going to always find it. We talked earlier about the smaller companies and the small virtual companies. Sometimes those are the greatest opportunities because they're very dependent on your skills. The big guys may not be, and you can have a hard time finding the diamond in the rough within that decision-making process. A lot of these companies have a whole protocol how they pick their CMO, and those are tough. But the small guy that we're talking about, there is maybe the opportunity to build, and you never know where that person's going to go. That's the thing in my career is people that you met 10, 15 years ago, and now they're in a senior management decision-making position, and now they remember what you did when you were with company X. So I do think it's just continually doing the same honest process day in and day out with everybody you come across, and you're going to make a difference. You're going to make a difference.
Yeah, I think the due diligence process that there is between sponsor company and CDMO site, when you're initiating that relationship from not only technical and quality but business perspective, you are getting a list of documents that is 20 documents long with extensive pages and paperwork, HSE, quality, your sustainability program, what is your analytical capabilities, what are your manufacturing capabilities, and it takes the entire team of your CDMO to put together that information and answer one by one. Not every company, every sponsor company is asking without, let's say, a standardized platform, right? And so these questions come in. Can take weeks for everybody to put that time and effort into answering. And the hope is, I think from the CDMO perspective, is that the sponsor sees the effort made by the supplier what information they're providing you. It doesn't just say, oh, that's confidential or it's confidential or come on site to see it. Like these answers are generated because the business is, they're listening, they understand what your request is, and how can we navigate. And I think if you've ever gone through the MSA process with a big pharma company and you land at a spot where both sides are happy and you sign off on that agreement, you've established a relationship at that point.
Right.
I don't know,
Right.
it's a very painful process, but if
Right.
you can get through it and work with them, okay, that's just one example, but it takes time.
I think that's the reason we try to get the people to participate in trade shows like this. Because I was telling the people like DCAT, you never know who you're going to run into. That one person that you always wanted to get a hold of within an organization, never been able to meet them, and wow, they're right there in front of you. But you make that personal connection, and that's what this is all about, is building a personal connection that you can continue to grow on.
Good. Are there any other questions from the audience, perhaps? No? Well, so basically, it's listening, it's trust, it's transparency, and it's work. Sounds like something else we all know about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, with those comments, if you would like to say one last comment, I think we're coming to the end of our session. Alicia?
Oh, okay. Sure, just to close, I think that, treating your potential business partner with the most utmost respect and transparency, good communication, and finding what it is that your CDMO can offer you and what it is that you need from them to build that balanced relationship. And then also, at the very beginning, set the expectations of what your needs are, what your, let's say, what your resources may lack, right? And so what you're looking for in your partner, because sometimes the more questions you ask, or if you're a little bit open about what your scenario is, you may find that the CDMO can offer you something that you weren't expecting, right? Not everything is listed in the website. So it comes from the people that are inside those organizations that have a different variation of kinds of experience working across different programs. So I think if you ask questions, who's in your team, what is their experience, what kind of programs have they worked on, is it mainly phase 1, phase 2? Finding phase appropriateness is a really, critical point I find in the programs that we're working on. Who are the CMC people that we're dealing with? What is their experience? And then we can leverage what needs to be provided, because it's really tailor-made at the end of the day.
If I may say, my mantra is when somebody comes to you for service, what I think is like, you give me the maximum information you have, that makes the product more successful, right? If you are withholding things, if you are not completely giving your ideas, whatever you have thought through, right? Give everything you can, be transparent to make the product successful. So that, I have to say that every single time when I meet with a client, the maximum you give, the maximum success we get.
Yeah, I would say, focus on the science. I tell the team, you should know the molecule better than the client, and that may not always be true, but if you can get to that state with the client, then when they run into a hiccup, you're going to be able to really come to the rescue and help them out. It's going to build a ton of trust. So really, know the science, focus on the scientific aspects of the program, be willing to talk with the client about them, argue them out, and be honest and truthful with them about how the programs are progressing. So to me, that's the main thing, scientific focus.
I just always found in the years is never take any client for granted. Every opportunity that comes through the door, listen to them, investigate it, see what the opportunity is, and every once in a while you may find the diamond in the rough. You may find that there's something that's surprising that you were going to sign off and say, this company isn't worth talking to, I've never heard of them before, but give every opportunity 100% of your effort, and you might find out you're being rewarded with a good opportunity, but just be honest with them.
Thanks. I want to thank you for staying around and listening to our panelists. And I want to encourage you to reach out to our panelists if you have any specific questions for either one of these companies that they represent. And also for their knowledge, because they will be able to help move your project forward, whether it's with them or with somebody else. So thank you again for being at this panel. And thank you to the
This was a
panelists.
pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.